Hi everyone, I'm in Montreal, Canada this week on my way to the airport. Actually, quite a sunny day for this time of the year in Canada. But I wanted to make a quick video update on what happened in the stablecoin ecosystem last week. It was a historic week in the US when it comes to the development of stablecoins. Finally, the Stablecoin Act, called the Genius Act, which stands for Guiding and Establishing a National Innovation for US Stablecoins, moved forward. This is a 122-page document. It was in the works for some time. Many expected it to happen, but actually is one of the few bipartisan topics that most people agree is needed when it comes to the US dollar. To use a car and horse analogy, doesn't innovate. We still have horses, but it makes the US dollar horse faster when it comes to basically having cars. This is why it's a big bipartisan topic in the US. A couple things to watch right now. This is a 122-page document. Again, a lot of mainstream journalists don't have time to go into it. A lot of crypto people don't bother reading it, but there's a lot of devil is in the detail in this latest piece of legislation. First of all, first big impact, there's going to be increased investments in the stablecoin ecosystem for sure. You're already seeing firms like Coinbase, like Ripple, bidding literally outrageous amounts of billions of dollars to buy a company like Circle, for example, to try to play a bigger role in the space. We should see increased activity in the space, increased investments in the space for sure. Second is really watching what's going to happen with a lot of the financial institutions entering the space as well. One thing that is very important when you look at this legislation, it says that stable coins that are regulated via this framework are considered cash or cash equivalent. And more importantly, the stable coins can be used as collateral, as margin for any kind of financial instrument, including derivatives. And this means actually, if you think about the pipeline, what's the use as collateral and margin for many of the financial transactions that we have today, this is a big milestone. It means that actually people can start using stable coins while to conduct these transactions. And this is why we should expect to see typical large financial institutions to all enter the stablecoin ecosystem. It's been already alleged last week from the Wall Street Journal that some of the big US banks are looking at entering the space. This is not a surprise. We should expect in the next 1-2 years, pretty much all the big US banks to have a stablecoin, whether they do it individually or more likely by way of a consortium. The second very important thing is the law explicitly bans yield-bearing stablecoins. You say, well, this is a bit weird, right? Because every pop conversations we're having in crypto is about yield-bearing stablecoins. Here actually explicitly bans them for a couple of reasons, mainly policy, right? Imagine people, and especially on regional banks, smaller banks, community banks, stablecoin, yield-bearing stablecoins are a direct threat. Think about it. If you leave your money now in a community bank in Midwest of the US, you're getting maybe 1-2% as deposit, Whereas imagine if you hold them in stable coins with a regulated custodian, fully backed, you're about to get pretty much what treasuries provide. So it's actually a very big impact on that perspective. This could cause a big run on the banks, especially smaller banks. And for this reason, the law explicitly bans yield-bearing stablecoins. Again, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Third, of course, the law also mentions that there's a clear provision against conflicts of interest, saying anybody who's serving right now in government is not allowed to issue or get active in stablecoins. This is obviously directly is targeted to Donald Trump and his family. They're involved in World Liberty Financial. They have a stablecoin USD1. Now, this is on paper in the law. Whether it's going to be implemented, respected, is a different conversation. But this is definitely something to watch when it comes to conflict of interest conversation around this topic. Now, a couple other things to watch is what's going to happen in other countries, jurisdictions. Many jurisdictions around the world, Hong Kong being one, the UAE, passed legislation on stablecoins in the last 1 or 2 years. Many of them, I would argue, were way too slow. And now actually, if you have a US dollar legislation on this topic that clearly defines how it works, how these firms have to be regulated, even what happens in the case of insolvency, and a US piece of legislation for US dollars, the big question in mind is what's going to happen to the stablecoins issued in Hong Kong, in the UAE, and other countries that have legislation for it. Maybe if these jurisdictions moved a bit faster on this topic, they would have been able to have an edge. But again, this remains to be seen what's going to happen on that perspective. And maybe the last point as well is what's going to happen to the big ecosystem we have right now of stablecoins. Tether is a very good example that are not regulated. I think the impact should be quite minimal. Stablecoins like Tether, for example, are mainly used in emerging markets. Today, if you're in the US and you're sending money within the US, it's not a big problem. It's maybe not perfect, but it works okay. The big question will be what happens actually for those who are unregulated, Tether being a very good example on that perspective. I don't expect a major impact actually. Probably these will continue to cohabitate. Tether is very used in emerging markets. and I think it has a very good use case there. And I think the regulated US one may play a bigger role in the US from that perspective. But one thing is for sure, again, at the beginning of COVID, we had less than $5 billion in stablecoins. Now we're over $200 billion in assets in stablecoins. Definitely this is a space to watch, and a very historic week, I would argue, when it comes to crypto legislation, and in particular crypto legislation in the US. Thank you very much. Hopefully this was a useful update, and see you all soon from somewhere in the world.